Allah is my heart's speech. Your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another live edition of your program Ask Huda. We begin by praising Allah the Almighty alone and sending the best peace and blessings upon His most beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And then I would like to remind you with our phone numbers in the beginning of this episode, area code 002, then 0238 131 or 132. Also, the email address is ask@huda.tv, and you can also send your questions to my page directly, as it should appear on the bottom of the screen, inshallah. Our first caller today, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Khadija from Gambia.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda.
Thank you. A person asked, I am in the U.S. and I have to file my papers. I have to show a proof of income, and I am self-employed. Now I realize that the government will charge me interest because of late filing of my tax return, and I don't want to commit the sin of riba. Is this considered as the rule situation? And can she pay it or not?
Okay.
And also, I have a recommendation for Huda. Can you guys make a Viber line wherein, like, anybody who wants to call, they can call free from anywhere around the world?
Okay, that's a good recommendation. We'll look into that, inshallah. Okay, thank you, Khadija from Gambia. Barakallah fiki. The first question with regards to filing the tax papers in the United States, and there is a late fee. Well, there is a difference between a late fee and interest. A late fee is a fixed amount for for failing to file any paperwork at a certain time. But an interest is relating to the amount that you have to pay. So if you have to pay, it's like exactly paying your due debt to the bank if you're using a credit card, and if you fail to make the payment on time, or if you forget, then there will be a charge. The charge is based on the percentage. So if it is 6%, if it is 8% of the total amount that you have to pay. So that's interest, obviously, and that's why we say actually having a credit card is problematic unless if it is necessary, like you cannot live without it. You cannot fly, you cannot rent a car, you cannot pay the hospital bills without having a credit card. So we overcome this invalid condition of agreeing to pay interest, provided you make certain that you should pay the due amount before the due date, not to fall into the illegal act of paying interest or having to pay interest. So the person must be conscious of making his payment on time, whether filing the papers. I'm not here to discuss the legality of paying the taxes or the amount. I'm just discussing one certain point, which is that making any payment on time, if you know that if you delay, that you will have to pay interest or you will have to pay a late charge fee, then you must pay before the due date in order to avoid that. I also understand that there is an extension for a few months if you have a necessity, provided you just need to request an extension, and any extra charges will be waived based on your request for an extension. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. We'll look into the suggestion of having a Viber line. We'll see, inshallah, if we can activate that. The second question was from Muhammad from the KSA last episode, who asked about whenever the Imam is making dua during the Friday sermon, are we supposed to say Ameen? Yes, you're supposed to say Ameen, because the saying of Ameen is to confirm the dua of the da'i, the supplicant, the caller, who is the Imam in this case. It is similar to saying Ameen whenever any person is making dua outside the salah or inside the salah in the case of the witr. The only difference is that many of the scholars have required that it should not be with an audible voice. You should not make Ameen out loud. You should say Ameen. You can hear yourself, but it shouldn't be out loud. And also, it is not prescribed to raise the hands while saying Ameen whenever the Imam is making dua after the Friday sermon, because it has not been reported by any of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ that they used to do so. And as a matter of fact, what is reported is the opposite. Raising the hands in making dua and saying Ameen if the dua is congregational is a sunnah, is recommended in every dua except in the dua of the Friday sermon. That is not the sunnah, nor is it recommended to raise the hands. You should only say Ameen without an audible voice, but without raising the hands. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Muhammad's next question is, due to physical illness, is it permissible not to prostrate the regular sujood and just bend forward with the body? In the sound hadith which is collected by Imam al-Bukhari, may Allah have mercy on him, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, صَلِّ قَائِمًا فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ فَقَاعِدًا فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ فَعَلَى جَنْبٍ. There is, based on this hadith, a general consensus that if a person cannot afford to stand up in the prayer, then he is allowed to sit down. And also the Prophet ﷺ gave an extension to that and said, if the person cannot sit down even just to pray, then the person can simply pray while lying down or while sitting on a side, while reclining, in any position that you can afford due to your health conditions. As for the standing for the fard prayer, it's a must. Allah the Almighty said, وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. So al-qiyam, the standing in the prayer, is a must. We have to differentiate between the standing in the fard prayer and in the nafilah. And nafilah, anything other than the 5 daily prayers. The Prophet ﷺ sometimes prayed on the back of his camel while he's traveling. And that is because it is nafilah. But whenever it is the fard prayer, he will disembark, get off the back of the ride, and face the qibla and pray while standing, make a proper ruku' and make a proper sujood. In the case of an-nafilah, if you choose to pray while seated, then you get half the reward, but it's permissible. In the case of fard and in the case of nafilah, if the person due to health reasons has to pray while sitting down because he cannot stand up, then he gets a full reward. If a person cannot stand up but is capable to make ruku' and sujood on the ground, then the person must pray in whichever position that he can. Instead of the standing, he can sit down on a chair like this. But when it comes to ruku', he must bow down the ruku', the proper ruku' from the standing position if he can. If he cannot, then while being on his seat, like that. Then if he can make sujood on the floor, then he must make sujood with the 7 body parts, as the Prophet ﷺ pointed. Umirtu an asjuda ala sab'ati a'dum. Al-jabha, and he pointed to the face, to the forehead and the nose, and the 2 palms, and the knees, and the toes of both feet. So if the person cannot stand up, he may sit down and it's permissible, and he will not lose any reward. His reward will not be diminished. But if he can make sujood on the ground, then he must, after sitting down instead of standing, when it comes to sujood, he must make sujood on the ground. Some people, they may have a standing problem or a problem with the standing, so they pray on the chair all the time, even though they can make sujood. No. On the other hand, there are people who cannot make sujood because of knees problems, but they don't have a problem with the standing position. So in this case, it's a must for them to stand up. And when it comes to sujood, they can make sujood while being seated on their chair or on whichever seat they are seated upon. How? Here is the prophetic description of al-ruku' and as-sujood if you are praying while sitting on a seat, not in the standing position. So al-ruku', Allahu Akbar, and you place both hands on the knees while sitting on the chair, and you lower your head that way. Why not all the way? Because actually when it comes to sujood, ima'uka bis sujood, or lowering your head for sujood, will be further down. Oh, that means I don't have to put a pillow or a surface or a piece of wood in order to prostrate my forehead and nose against. No, sir, you don't have to do that. Because you cannot make a complete sujood on the ground, then you don't have to place your forehead and nose on a table or on a desk, or some people put a pillow. And I have seen some people in the haram recently during Hajj, they put their hands backward or forward. You don't have to do any of that. It would simply be by lowering your head furthermore than the condition of ruku', and that would be sufficient. Keep in mind that the Prophet ﷺ said in the sound hadith, which is collected by Imam al-Bukhari, إذا مرض العبد أو سافر كتب له ما كان يعمل مقيما صحيحا. And this is a mercy from Allah and great generosity. He says, peace be upon him, whenever the servant of Allah falls ill or travels, whatever he used to do whenever he was resident and whenever he was healthy will be recorded for him, and he would not miss any of the reward of that. So a person in his health, I just met a person, subhanallah, one of our neighbors, Allah blessed them with wealth, so he managed to build a masjid, and this masjid was very active in da'wah, and a lot of people attend the prayer in. A few weeks ago, he got a stroke. Alhamdulillah, Allah saved him, and now he attends a prayer in the masjid after he was hospitalized for a few weeks, but he cannot stand up, so he is sitting on the chair. So I gave a speech after the Isha prayer, after I led the Isha prayer, to give him the good news and everyone else. Basically, the Prophet ﷺ said, whatever you used to do whenever you were healthy, now because of sickness you cannot afford to do it anymore, it will be reported for you. You will be rewarded for it fully, even without doing it. Whether it's fasting, whether it is night prayer, whether it's given in a charity, whether it is the standing in the prayer, particularly the nafila, because we know that in the case of nafila, you may sit down even if you're healthy. The only issue is that you will have the reward, not a full reward. Following question is from Sister Asia from the KSA about visiting statues of celebrities and historical and famous people in museum. The Prophet ﷺ entirely forbade making statues on the images of any human being or any living creature. And in the sound hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, the person who carves a statue or makes an image of a living creature, on the Day of Judgment, Allah the Almighty will order him to breathe the soul into the statue which resembled the living creature, and he will be punished accordingly because trying to imitate Allah the Almighty in His creation. So this is one thing which is forbidden. Some people would say, why? What is the effective cause? When we say that because people before us started carving statues and images of righteous people, and generations after generations they ended up worshiping them, they would say, but we do not worship them anymore, and there is a clear awareness of the prohibition of worshiping idols. This is what you think. But it started at the time of Nuh alayhi salam. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى. These statues and وقالوا لا تذرن آلهتكم ولا تذرن ودا ولا سواعا ولا يغوث ويعوق ونسرا. These statues were basically images for righteous people, and when they died, the people missed them, and they said, we need to commemorate the remembrance. So they did carve images similar to them, statues similar to them. And they commemorated the remembrance as they were righteous people to encourage the following generation to maintain righteousness. But generations after generations, Satan made it seem fair to them to worship them, as these statues were for the deities that communicate your message to God directly, because you are not good enough to communicate with God. This is also what happened at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is basically the story of worshiping idols everywhere and throughout the history. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade that entirely, even if you assume that we are secure against worshiping idols. It is not permissible, and there is a straightforward and a clear prohibition against that. Brother Muhammad Isa says, I have difficulties in retaining wudu for the entire period of a single prayer. Sometimes my wudu breaks before I even finish performing the ablution. That also prevents me from performing nafila prayers, and I need more clarifications in this matter. Jazakallahu khayran. Wa jazakum. May Allah bless you and may Allah cure you. This medical condition, which makes a person suffers from frequently breaking wind or not being able to control the orifices, whether the urine or the rear orifice. So accordingly, the person may have a urine incontinence, or a person may have this breaking gas very frequently, as Brother Muhammad, may Allah cure him, says that it happens even while I'm performing the wudu. Not only that I perform wudu and before I start the prayer I break it. No, while I'm performing wudu. So this is happening very frequently. What happens after this call, inshallah? Sister Susanna from the KSA. Sister Susanna, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have a question. There is quite a bit of single women who are widows. Some have children, some do not have children. In fact, I think there are about millions of them around the world, Muslims.
Correct.
And most of the sheikhs and the imams that we have, they all promote polygamy, but most of them do not practice it themselves. And we always hear about the word tawakkul, to have trust in Allah that He will provide the provision, He will provide the time and the money. So I want to know, this is actually something that my husband is telling me. So I want to know...
what is he telling you?
So he is explaining this to me. This is how he explains it to me about
what is
how
your
he
own
opens
stand?
up the issue.
What is your own stand?
I'm sorry?
What is your own stand? I mean, are you okay with that?
I told him, of course, I want to help. And I'm all open to helping. But through financial.
Okay.
You know, financially, I'm all open to that. But I'm not crazy about...
I mean, you don't have to be
meeting,
crazy. You don't have to be crazy about it. My question is, are you open for that? Are you okay with that?
I'm not okay with the part that they will be allowed to be without hijab. This is the part that I cannot get over.
What do you mean without
I cannot
hijab?
get... I cannot... it's just very hard to accept that they'll be alone in a room.
Well, Sister Susanna, you're talking about marriage. They will be officially married. So she would have the same rights like you exactly. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it's
I
not
know.
only about wearing hijab. They don't have to wear any clothes together. Okay, I got your point. But now are you making an objection or are you asking a question?
Well, I want to know, he told me this is the nature of man, that all men, they are capable of loving more than one woman, and it's natural. So how come most of the men that I see from sisters, they're only married to one? And not only the men around me.
Okay, maybe he's
The
asking you to
same
begin by yourself. Maybe he's asking you, proposing to you to take the initiative. Would you?
I don't, well,
Okay, I got your point.
I don't know. I don't know.
No, basically, your answer is very normal. Had you said otherwise, I would say this is really extraordinary. What I'm trying to say is, yeah, every woman, should be very protective for her husband and she wants him all alone for herself. This is very normal. But you also brought up a very important matter, which is there are a lot of widows. And in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, أنا وكافل اليتيم في الجنة هكذا. So the Prophet ﷺ praised the person who would look after orphans, sponsor orphans. He said that Allah will give him such a great reward that he will be with me in paradise like these two fingers that close. Because it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of time, sacrifice of wealth, sacrifice of emotions. A living family, living very happily, and then they see another family have been afflicted with crisis. They lost their family father, they lost their support. Kids are young, and the person has to go, at late hours to fulfill their needs, to take care of the kids, to do whatever is needed. It's a family. They used to have a family father, then he disappeared, he died. So the ultimate way is if this person becomes their stepfather, sponsor them, he would raise them. You know what Umar ibn Abi Salama, may Allah be pleased with him, says, كنت غلاما في حجر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Listen to this hadith. Umar, the son of Abi Salama, and Salama says, I was a young boy sitting in the lap في حجر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The word في حجر here literally means a lap. Does not necessarily mean that he was sitting in his lap. It means that the Prophet ﷺ had become his stepfather. When Abu Salama passed away, the Prophet ﷺ knows that Salama had a bunch of kids, and she's an old woman. And the Prophet ﷺ doesn't need any other woman in his life. He's busy enough, and he has Aisha, he's Hafsa and Zainab and all of that. But he proposed to Salama radiyallahu anha because she needed somebody to look after her and after her children. Similarly, Habiba, Abu Sufyan's daughter, when her husband died in Al-Habasha, she was far, far away from the Prophet ﷺ. He knew that her husband passed away. He proposed to her. So these women were widows, all of them, with the exception of Aisha radiyallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her. Other divorced or widows such as Zainab bint Jahsh, may Allah be pleased with her, she was divorced. So adding these women to his life was to support them, to sponsor them. And there he sponsored Salama and her kids, and she says, Ya Rasulullah, I'm an old woman and I have a bunch of kids. And on top of that, I'm jealous. The Prophet ﷺ says to her, if you're old and I'm old too, and your kids will be my kids, this is the main purpose of marrying Salama radiyallahu anha. So a person who would do this with this intention, and if you're supportive to this good and great cause, she will be a wife with all the rights. I once had a caller from a couple. The husband says that we have a maid. Look at this. And because my wife goes to work and different times and I stay home alone, so my wife and we thought about marrying her so that she will be like a mahram. I will be like a mahram to her. I said, Only if you're marrying her to become a wife, not a maid, not to serve you for free, not a part-time wife, because once you marry her, she will have all the rights like your wife. She's a wife. When you're saying that, I'm okay with it, but I cannot tolerate that she takes her hijab off before, hey, they are a husband and wife, like you and your husband exactly. This decision isn't easy to make. But some people, Allah made it easy for them financially, physically, and they've got the time. They can afford to look after several families. And I have seen people like that. I have seen people who married only in order to have taken another wife, only in order to look after orphans. And their spouses are okay with that. May Allah bless them all. But you do not destroy your family because you want to spare another family. If you know that this is going really to destroy your family, then based on the benefit-risk ratio, no. Also, if you are living hand to mouth and you're struggling to pay the rent and pay the utilities, you don't say, I'm marrying this sister because she lost her husband. Oh, really? You're right, man. You're having difficulty maintaining. You're borrowing in order to support one wife. You cannot put your kids in school and you cannot buy them the school supplies because you're struggling financially. So how are you going to support the other family and support the other orphans? You have to be wise and you have to be realistic. But if a person, alhamdulillah, Allah blessed him with all, and he can afford that, and he knows that he can maintain both families, then فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Then Allah the Almighty says, فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. By the way, this is one of the reasons as why may a person in Islam take another spouse, but it is not the only reason. She doesn't have to be a widow. She doesn't have to be a divorcee, because the Quran doesn't say so. Thank you, Sister Susanna from the case A. And maybe your husband is planning on something, so just ask him straightforward, what are you up to? Okay? Barakallahu fiki. We were talking about Muhammad Isa and the problem of frequently breaking his wudu. Allah the Almighty says in Surah At-Taghabun, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. This ayah is so beautiful. Along with the ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. We're dealing with Allah. We're not dealing with an employer. We're not dealing with a regular boss who demands you to finish your job regardless. I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if your mother is in the hospital. No, Allah the Almighty says, number one, He does not impose any takalif, any commands, any duties on any soul beyond its capacity. Rather, all the commands, an average person can afford to do them. And then, having said so, there are some exceptions, some people who cannot afford to do the affordable because it is out of their capacity. They cannot afford to do it. Sometimes because of a temporary reason, and sometimes because they are living in certain condition that doesn't allow them. So Allah the Almighty said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Keep your duty to Allah as much as you can. In this case, you make wudu. And with this wudu, you pray the fard prayer, even if you keep breaking your wudu while praying. And you pray the nawafil before and the nawafil after until the next fard prayer. Even if you are breaking your wudu with wind or urine incontinence throughout the time, even within the prayer itself. Okay? Provided the wudu must be made after the time of the prayer has entered. Assalamu alaikum. Sister Zahra from United Arab Emirates.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the program. Fine, alhamdulillah. Thank you for asking.
I have a question. What if the diseased person comes in a dream and they say they are very happy? Is it a sign that they are really happy, or what if they are come in a sign of saying that they are sad, they are not happy? How far is this true to make out that they are happy or That's fine.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question quite clearly. You're saying who is happy and who is not really happy. Can you repeat your question, please?
Dream.
Yeah, go ahead.
If a diseased person comes in a dream
If,
and
I'm
sees
sorry,
that they are happy,
you said
is that true?
if a believer,
If a diseased person comes in a dream and says that they are happy and they are living happy in Jannah or
okay,
something like that,
okay.
is it really true? Or
Yes,
just,
yes. That is absolutely true.
mashallah,
Dreams do not
because
lie.
my mother, she passed away last month, and she had come in my brother's dream, and she told him that convey this message to all your family members that I'm living very happy.
Congratulations. This is good news. May Allah have mercy on her. Yes. That's an assurance. That's an assurance that she is, or her soul is actually in paradise. And this is a glad tiding that should be shared with others, so that people would know this person used to be righteous, and now we are living, and we have seen the good news that the person, it's a true dream actually. This person is in paradise or is. And by the way, brothers and sisters, you all remember Brother Usama al-Shami, our colleague, who subhanallah, who passed away in a horrible accident when, in Turkey. And subhanallah, I have seen him in a night vision. I was in Hajj and I sent a message to his wife that I have seen him, and I asked him, "You're alive?" He said, "Yes, I'm alive. I'm fine, alhamdulillah wa shukla." This is a bishara. This is a good news, alhamdulillah wa shukla. Assalamu alaikum. Brother Idris from the USA.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Sheikh?
Fine, alhamdulillah. How are you, Brother Idris?
Alhamdulillah. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. Where are you calling from?
San Antonio.
San Antonio. You're Texan, man.
Yeah. Well, now.
There is a very nice Pakistani restaurant in San Antonio. Go ahead and eat there for me, please.
We've been to a couple.
Okay. Idris, salam alaikum. Can you hear me?
Okay, so a couple of questions.
Yeah.
My first question is, I go to a Dawah program on Sundays with a Muslim chaplain, and I'm usually there for Dua prayer. He recites he does the prayer out loud. I've spoken to him about it. He understands that he's not from the Sunnah, but he says that doesn't invalidate the prayer. He's usually talking to non-Muslims, and he says that the feedback he gets is they want to be able to hear what is being recited. So he's doing that to be able to reach them.
I guess I know the chaplain because we used to go to the prison together, and I've heard that before. Okay.
Okay. So now my question is, this is what he does. I want to be there, but when he's reciting, do I say, I mean, like I'm in a shop? Because I'm usually confused. I just stand there and I'm not exactly sure how to follow when the prayer is never repeated out loud when I know it's supposed to be inside.
Okay. Thank you, Idris. I got your point. Inshallah will be answered after the break, but we have another Brother Muhammad from the KSA before the break. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
One question about Sunnah prayers.
Yeah.
I am from the continent of India, where they usually 4 rakat means they will pray with one salam. When I moved to Saudi Arabia, a lot of people recommend is pray two units. Which one is the correct and which one is the better one?
Okay.
And can I ask one more little question?
Yeah, please.
When I go to masjid, I usually go before adhan. During this period, shall I have got the time. During this period, I have to read the Quran is better, or I have to pray two rakat as a nafil prayer.
Got your question, Brother Muhammad from the case of brothers and sisters. We'll take a quick short break, inshallah, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
This is Walid Bassuri, the Vice President of Al Maghrib Institute and a member of the Fatwa Committee and a simply jurist in North America. Believe it or not, there is no universal definition for the word terrorism. In the United Nations, there's a lot of debates, no agreement on how to define terrorism. They have no mercy. They have no feelings. Killing kids, killing an 80-year-old priest in the church. Even the soldier, the enemy that you fight in a legit fight, if he is in a state of safety and security, not expected to be harmed, you're not allowed to harm him. But even other historians and other theologians said, no, Al-Khawarij started even in the Prophet ﷺ time. Hijacking airplanes, destroying urban areas and buildings, public properties, targeting civilians, and all these kind of things that the terrorist group do today. And he said it's absolutely forbidden in Islam.
فلا يتدبرون القرآن.
One day the Prophet ﷺ came out to the companions radiallahu anhum, and he said to them, don't you bear witness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one worthy of worship and he has no partners? Don't you bear witness that I am the messenger of Allah? Don't you bear witness that the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the companions radiallahu anhum, they said, yes, O Prophet of Allah. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَأَبْشِرُوا, have the glad tidings, the great news as a result of this. Because the Quran has two ends to it. One end with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and one end in your hands. Then he said to them alayhi salatu wassalam, فَتَمَسَّكُوا بِهِ, hold fast to it, because you would never be led astray and you would never be perished if you're holding fast to the book of Allah. Because of that, join us every week in Quran in Depth, where we recite and reflect and ponder over the verses of the Quran. We go in depth into the verses, following the ways of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions radiallahu anhum. When they used to take the verses, one set of verses after another, they would recite it, they would reflect upon the meanings of it, and they would act according to it, and then they would go to the next set of verses. Join us every week in Quran in Depth, so that we would recite and reflect and learn more about the book of Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our life and to make us among those who follow the Quran and the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Our phone numbers, area code 002, then 0238 555 131 or 132. We have, mashallah, a few pending questions. Brother Idris from the United States of America, particularly from San Antonio, is talking about doing the da'wah with one of our brothers, a chaplain, and he deliberately recites the Dhuhr prayer out loud. His excuse or his reasoning is in order to educate the Muslim community. I have been blessed to be a chaplain in the U.S. prisons for more than 10 years. And we had a similar situation. And mashallah, now more and more people are actually volunteering into the chaplaincy. So what is the story of reciting with an audible recitation or out loud in the prayer which is supposed to be sirriya? Sirriya means you recite where you move your tongue, you move your lips, you utter the words, the recitations, the adhkar, but without an audible voice. That is in Dhuhr and in Asr prayer. While you recite in Maghrib and in Isha and Fajr, audible. So if you're leading the prayer, recite out loud. The recitation, audible or not audible, is sunnah. And it doesn't affect the validity of the prayer. If somebody came in Dhuhr prayer and recited out loud with the purpose of teaching the community behind him, especially new Muslims, while he is indicating that this is only to educate you, that's fine. But the person shouldn't be doing that for years, because now since I've been there, now it's like 20 years. Once, twice, a few times, but not to do it on a regular basis, because this is entirely against the Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum. Noor from Pakistan, brother Noor Khan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
How are you,
barakatuh.
doctor?
Fine, alhamdulillah. Fine. How about yourself and your family?
Okay, my first question is that I belong to Sunni, Imam Abu Hanifa, we are followers.
Okay.
And some are Imam Shafi and some are other group, Imam Malik.
Yeah.
So my question is this: if someone is taking something from one Imam which is followed and taking from Imam Shafi, suppose I am following Imam Abu Hanifa, and something practicing which the Imam Shafi was following, is it permissible like this?
Okay. Any other questions?
And the other question is, we see this in Pakistan, there is different school of thoughts, and some groups are Deobandi, some are this Bravery in Sunni group, and they are believing on this all graveyard and this thing, and they are, when they are asking something from Allah, they are making wasta through, like they are, even the Prophet mosque they are going, and they are, when they are praying to Allah, but they are making the wasta through Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that may Allah bless me through this Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is it permissible? Only I'm talking about Prophet Muhammad is just upon him through the wasta.
Okay.
So this is my two questions. Can you answer, please?
Yeah, sure, inshallah. Jazakallahu khair. Please, Brother Mahmoud from the USA, try again. Inshallah, I'll be happy to take your call. Okay, so we answer Idris' question. It's a sunnah to recite out loud in Maghrib, Isha, and in Fajr prayer. And it's a sunnah to recite the recitation of Dhuhr and Asr sirran, not audible. Doing the opposite occasionally, it's okay, but if you do that on a regular basis, that is entirely against the sunnah, and we should be teaching the new Muslims that this is a sunnah, otherwise they get used to it. Similar to some imams who deliberately do khitam al-salah out loud, and they do the dua in congregation and all of that, and they say this is just to teach the Muslim community. We have been doing this on a regular basis for the past 20 years. This is not an excuse. Everybody in the community now is educated, and they want to do khitam al-salah on their own, like the Prophet ﷺ used to do. And there are a lot of people who want to make up their missed rak'ahs, and people who want to pray the sunnah. So do not confuse them and practice the sunnah. Everyone should do the khitam al-salah on their own. You do not do out loud. You do not direct them as what to do. Similarly with al-jahru fi salah, or reciting out loud in dhuhr. As a matter of fact, many people think that the new Muslims, like they take forever to learn. I haven't seen better Muslim community than those who were incarcerated and they accepted Islam. In the prison, brothers and sisters, in all the prisons that I visited, including the maximum security units, some people who are sentenced to life in prison. Yes, serial killers, and after accepting Islam, they become completely different. And I do have certificates from the wardens of appreciation how those inmates, American inmates, local American inmates, after accepting Islam have become completely different people. Islam does wonders by the grace of Allah, because this is how it is. This is the religion, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can actually write books, and I can narrate that in episodes and episodes, my experience in giving da'wah in the American prisons. I have seen also wonders from some of them. Some of them have memorized the entire Quran. American inmates. Not only that, they were able to recite the Quran, but they learned Arabic, and this is only because of visiting them on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, once a week. And in Ramadan, I tried my best to break my fast with them, and the best iftar I had was with the inmates in the prison. You see them while praying, they learn from the scratch, but they learn the proper way by the grace of Allah. Whatever you instruct them, because you're the only source of teaching. So now they rely only on the Quran or on a sound hadith or whatever. I have some people who have memorized the entire Quran. So whenever I was giving a talk, if I mention a reference, one of the inmates by the name Bilal or Muhammad Bilal would give the reference. So say chapter 35, verse number 37, MashaAllah, la quwwata illa billah. So you should not take this as an excuse that I'm twisting the rules or I'm neglecting the sunnah because I have to educate them. They're educated enough. Every once in a while, it is okay to teach them. The second question, Brother Muhammad from the KSA, he asked about praying the sunnah after dhuhr without taslim in the middle. There is a hadith mentioned in this regard, but it's a very weak hadith, so that's dismissed. But is it permissible to pray the sunnah before Asr or the sunnah before Dhuhr, or the sunnah after Dhuhr, the 4 rak'ahs all together? Yes, it is permissible. And what is the better way? Because this is what he asked. The better way is to pray 2 by 2, each 2 with tashahhud and taslim. And if you pray the 4 rak'ahs all together, then you sit for a middle tashahhud after 2 rak'ahs without making taslim. But you get up to the 3rd and the 4th, and you make tashahhud and taslim by the end. Why did he say that the better way is to pray 2 by 2? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in the sound hadith, Salatul Layli masna masna. And in another narration, Salatul Layli wal Nahar masna masna. Praying the nawafil at night or during the day, 2 by 2. So this is what is recommended. Brother Muhammad says that, mashallah, he goes to the masjid before adhan. I envy you. I love you. I love what you do. You know, this is a practice which is to magnify the practice of the prayer. He makes an effort to go to the masjid even before the adhan. Now when he goes to the masjid before adhan, he's asking, is it better to recite Quran or to pray nawafil? First of all, when you enter the masjid at any time, even during the times which is disliked to pray any nawafil, do not sit down before praying tahiyyatul masjid. That's one thing. Second, the preference between the prayer and the recitation of the Quran, it's easy to say that whenever you pray, what do? You recite Quran. So if you make the recitation of the Quran within the prayer, that is better. That if the time allows you, you don't pray any general nawafil between Asr and Maghrib. You don't pray mutlaqun nafli between Fajr and until past sunrise. And similarly, you do not pray any nawafil 20 minutes before the adhan of Dhuhr. So, if you enter the masjid between Maghrib and Isha and you sit, it is recommended now to pray as many rak'ahs as you want, 2 by 2, as I said. If you enter before Fajr, the best is to pray, because praying during this time, which is known as Waqtul Sahar, is the best prayer of the day, of the nawafil, obviously, the tahajjud. And this is the time during which Allah the Almighty stretches out His offer and hands with accepting your dua, forgiving the sins, and responding to your call. هل من داع فأجيبه هل من مستغفر فأغفر له هل من سائل فأعطيه. Noor from Pakistan has some beautiful questions. I don't know if the director can give me just a couple minutes, because the brother encountered the cost to call all the way from Pakistan. If you adopt a particular madhab, is it okay to follow another madhab? Let me tell you this, Brother Noor, and all of you brothers and sisters. My education in Al-Azhar, basically Hanafi. I studied the Hanafi madhab thoroughly for 7 complete years. Does it mean that I go by everything that Imam Abu Hanifa or his students, Muhammad, Abu Yusuf, and Al-Hasan, they go by? Not necessarily. Because Al-Imam Abu Hanifa himself said, if the hadith is proven to be sound, then this is my madhab, even if it is against what I said. And subhanAllah, he has changed his views, and he yielded to the views of some of his students. Look into the issue of wiping over the socks at the time of his sickness before his death, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and many examples. So it's perfectly okay to take the views of different imams and different madhabs of all the Sunni madhab, as long as you're not picking the concessions or the excuses. Rather, you're taking and you're following the more valid view. That is the best scenario. So you say, I'm Shafi'i, but I heard that the Prophet ﷺ used not to do qunut in every Fajr. So I'm not taking this from the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i, Muhammad ibn Idris Shafi'i. Fine. I'm doing raf'ul yadayn in takbiratul intiqal. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, only Imam Abu Hanifa, he doesn't raise the hands and he does not allow that in the prayer. While it has been narrated by a long list of the companions, maybe it hasn't reached Imam Abu Hanifa. So I'm Hanafi in the madhab of fiqh, school of thought of fiqh. But I heard that the Prophet ﷺ have raised his hands while going for ruku'ah, and upon rising up from ruku'ah, and when he was going to the third rak'ah. So it's a sunnah, I'm going to do it. Similarly, if there is a hadith that contradicts my view in the madhab that I'm following, follow the sound reference. That is perfectly okay. But as far as taking an intermediary in making dua, that have nothing to do with Ahlul Sunnah whatsoever. This is the practice of whoever, but not Ahlul Sunnah. Because Ahlul Sunnah, the mainstream of this ummah, they believe in the Quran, they believe in the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What does the Quran say in this regard? The Quran is very clear in commanding the believers that they should invoke Allah directly. And the Prophet ﷺ recapped that by explaining to the entire ummah, if you ask, you should only ask of Allah. When you make dua, you should only make dua to Allah directly. When you seek help and refuge, you should seek it only from Allah directly. It is absolutely forbidden to take anyone as an intermediary between you and Allah, including Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. Whenever my servants ask you concerning me, I am near. So let them respond to me and ask of me in order to be rightly guided. May Allah the Almighty guide all of us to His straight path. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Your mercy is what I beseech.